Well, it's another lovely day again, but it has turned cold. I think today's maximum temperature is only about 7 or 8 degrees. It certainly feels like that, so I thought, because people keep nagging me about it, that I ought to prepare for winter. Here goes. Here we are. Job done. This morning I'm in quiet mode, and even more off the beaten track than I normally would be. There are days sometimes when you long for peace and quiet and you don't require the company of others. I think today is one of them days. I do tend to avoid the beaten track wherever possible, and the nearest one to me is over there somewhere, but even that's a hardly used beaten track. Sometimes the only company I require, and I know many others do, is the company of nature. And I'm lucky living where I live. Might not be the most glamorous of towns, but it's surrounded by fantastic countryside. So I'm blessed that way. There's a lot of people that would love to have Sherwood Forest and its ancient trees on the doorstep, and indeed easily within walking distance. But some days you wish that you were in Sherwood Forest and that walking distance was too far for anybody to even bother walking. Over the last few years, I have no idea what would have happened without having an interest in natural history and those creepy crawlies that everyone detests and hates. Those creepy crawlies that are a nuisance to people's lives in general. At least especially to those who don't have an interest in them. But even though you don't have an interest in them, you should be able to appreciate them for what they are. And they are the most important part of the food chain. And the food chain that includes humans ultimately at the end of it. I can't remember how many times I was probably told as a child by my mother to get up off the floor, you'll get dirty, or put that down, you don't know what you'll catch. Truth is, you're hardly likely to catch anything at all from insects. Insects are far cleaner than what you think, even the humble housefly. How many people on their death certificates have got death by housefly as a cause of death? I don't suppose there's too many. Yet admittedly there are a few insects that can cause death or disease. Mosquitoes is one, ticks, is another. Not the ticks on a clock, but the insect tick, or the arachnid tick, I should say. Slugs is another one. And the odd spider that might give you a bit of a nasty nip. But in this country, we've got very little to worry about in terms of catching anything off insects and spiders. Providing you don't believe what you read in the papers. That would be a silly thing to do. I found that as you go on through life and as you get later in life, you tend to spend more time on your own through an assortment of reasons. Mine was bereavement. And I must admit, if it wasn't for having an interest in nature and the outside world and things that crawled or flew within that world, I very probably wouldn't even be here now. You need something to occupy yourself, to potentially give yourself that interest to get through even the darkest of days. Having an interest in invertebrates and the less pleasant things in life to a lot of people has helped me unbelievably, and has helped many others. There are innumerable people that have similar mental health issues and problems, and yet have come through them and are able to deal with them better through having an interest in invertebrates or in nature in general. So before you squash that spider or splat that fly, you should think the importance that spider or that fly could have on somebody. It may seem a bit far-fetched and a bit of an extreme example, but to someone that has an interest in the smaller things in life, it isn't. I find that distancing myself from people helps me in a strange kind of way. You find after life's not so pleasant events that people will distance themselves from you anyway. It's amazing how bereavement can make you feel like you're the loneliest person in the world, and to all intents and purposes you are. Certainly inwardly, you might not always give that impression to those you meet. But people do avoid you. Nature doesn't. And I know that for a fact. There have been times when people have not realised that I'd seen them, they'd seen me, and darted across the road or went into the nearest shop available. It does happen. But I find that with nature, nature's always there for you. Come rain or shine, or no matter what mood you're in. If you're in a sad mood, nature can suddenly end that sadness in a millisecond by the discovery of something, or by witnessing something, or seeing something, or experiencing something in the natural world. All the greatest things I've ever seen have been natural phenomena. The northern lights in about 1984, I think it was. The Great Leonid meteor shower of 1998, an unexpected outburst that lit the sky up. Thankfully, I've still got the cassette tapes to re-experience it again, all these years later. Nature is the only one that sends miracles your way. Don't expect it from people. This bit of the forest is incredibly rarely visited once you're off the beaten track. There are the odd deer track, worn over decades, but no tracks made by people. Coming into places and areas like this are wonderful. It's almost like discovery, like the old explorers going off and finding new parts of the world. Sherwood Forest is very much a big part of my world. It always has been since 2008, really. Dillis and I spent many hours, thousands of hours, recording the wildlife of Sherwood Forest, day and night. It can be called a lot of things, and have been called a lot of things, by a lot of people. But it can't be called, and Dillis and I can't be called, or could never be called, based on our commitment to the wildlife of Sherwood Forest. A few years ago, I had a fallout with Natural England, who wanted to give us another lecture, and the Forestry Commission, as they were then, who also wanted to give us a lecture. They got told in no uncertain terms that I don't accept lectures off the likes of them. So that led to a period where Dillis and I didn't visit Sherwood Forest. We might sneak in once a year to check on the presence of Cryptocephalus coralli, the hazelpot beetle, but apart from that we went elsewhere. And in that time no one came and recorded the invertebrates of the forest. But then last year I started to come back a bit more, because I found that by walking up the forest after Dillis's death in 2019, that my interest in recording invertebrates and wildlife started to come back. At first, my walks up here were just walks. If I saw anything, if I happened to see anything, didn't record it. Just went, oh, so and so, and carried on. Didn't really take any notice of what was about. But then gradually I started to see and appreciate the sunlight coming through the trees, the colours of the leaves. And it was over a period of time that I think it was the forest itself that encouraged me back out. And trees like this, with this huge epicormic growth, not me, that's epicormic growth, very old epicormic growth. If you saw that off, it would make a fantastic bowl if you carved it out. So I best not tell you where this tree is or what number it is. But Sherwood Forest is like any other British woodland. It's a fantastic place to come and visit. It's a fantastic place to think things over. It gives you answers to things. It helps you find those answers, helps you to decide and make decisions. It's like having a trusted old friend. Sometimes it's not until you tread the forest floor that's rarely visited by anything other than deer that you'll come across a tree like this one. This is not such an unusual ancient oak in Sherwood Forest, but seeing trees like this that are about 80% dead, and yet there's new life growing out towards us and upwards, you realise that trees like this are quite representative of what you're going through, or what you can go through, especially with bereavement. When you lose a loved one, if it's a wife or a husband especially, you become like that tree, largely dead. That's how you feel, and that's how you are. You have little reason to want to carry on. I mean, after all, when you've lost a loved one, they're your whole life, or at least they should be. But trees like this, they represent exactly how you feel, and they represent your life, where the majority of the body of the tree is dead. But yet, like this oak, you can rejuvenate yourself and give fresh purpose to your life. It took some doing for me. It's taken me at least 2 years, and I know I'll never be completely right, but I am now on the right path. Well, I think so. It's having the time to do videos that has given me a lease of life. I had got back into the recording of invertebrates for the best part of this year. I was back to normal. The walks around the forest weren't just walks anymore, they were walks with a purpose, to look for stuff, and found stuff. But videos and making videos has opened up a whole new ball game. To me, it's like the rejuvenating part of this tree. It might sound strange, but videos have given me the opportunity to have somebody to talk to and to explain things to, and to share my enthusiasm of the Nottinghamshire countryside and the wildlife contained within it, especially if it's got 6 or 8 legs. And I hope that's what comes across. I know videos and YouTube isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I don't know why. Like Facebook, it can be a good form of social media, when it's used beneficially. And it has been beneficial to me.